All right, Bobby Kennedy. Lots of stories over the weekend about what's going on at HHS, about President Trump's seeming tolerance for the style there. Best quote I saw was in a story where a former Trump administration from Trump 1 HHS official, I believe, described the desired outcome as Maha without mayhem.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Now, I heard from many of you. I misspoke. I said something wrong. I didn't misspeak. I was ill-informed by a senior congressional official who told me Bobby Kennedy said something he didn't. It was said at the hearing. I checked and was told, yes, that was wrong. It's my fault for relying on one source, and I apologize for that. But in general, you people are out of your minds. I say that with peace, love, and understanding. We need to have an adult conversation about Bobby Kennedy. He contains multitudes. As I said last week, there's stuff about him that's fantastic. I think he has done more to put a spotlight on serious public health problems, literally, than anyone in my lifetime. Truly historic. Even if he stepped down now, historic what he's done. At the same time, he says things that aren't true regularly, and members of Congress, including Republicans, agree. And that's not great for any public official, but particularly someone who deals with the public health of our kids. So we need to have an adult conversation about Bobby Kennedy's stewardship, not a hyper-partisan one. Thank you very much for your attention to that matter. Larry, what happens next? He did the Senate Finance hearing. He continues to work on autism. He's got some studies coming out. What happens next with Bobby Kennedy?
Listen, I think you painted the picture pretty well. He's got a pretty long leash right now from President Trump. And I think that as long as Kennedy continues focusing on getting data and getting information with regard to children and children's health, and yes, I'm interested in some of the autism information, and I'm open-minded about it. I have a son on the autism spectrum myself. And I don't think the American people feel like they've been getting the truth about this stuff. So whether he deals in hyperbole to try to get at that data or not, I think is something that's worthy of scrutiny. I think the reason why he's getting a lot of tolerance right now from the Trump base as well as from the Trump administration is that we've just lived through leaders at CDC and HHS and FDA lying on a regular basis about the pandemic. And I'm not saying one lie is equal to the other. What I'm saying is because of the lies we were all fed, he's given a little bit more tolerance to sort of investigate and bring out some of the truth right now.
Right. In honor of Sean, I'll say there are two things can be true at once. Kennedy calls out not just big food and big pharma. Kennedy calls out the fact that we don't have trust in the CDC.
Right.
That there's and the FDA, that there's decades of big government lies and incompetence and inefficiency that he calls out. That's fantastic. I'm all for it. I don't know who would be against it, except maybe knuckleheads in the Democratic Party. But that can be true. And at the same time, he can be taking positions that are at best inconsistent, often are false, and not in keeping with the best scientific data. Dan, how does your party deal with this? Because right now they've got Kennedy derangement syndrome, but that risks them getting on the wrong side of all the things that Kennedy talks about that are rightly popular.
Well, I think it goes to what Larry was just saying, which is that looking forward, if I were the Kennedy people in the White House, when he's talking about cleaning up the food supply, he's talking about industry capture. He is on the 80-20 side. They have a winning message. When he is fixated on vaccines and blowing out agencies with all due respect to Larry, no data to support it, but long-term hunches or beliefs that he's held that aren't supported by facts, he is on the wrong side of 80-20 issues. And so I think as much, if I'm a Democrat, I would focus on one thing or two things: transparency and accountability. Where you have data, put it out there. But when he doesn't, and he just says, well, everybody knows and everybody tells me, sounds familiar. As you said, Mark, people say, that's my grandmother. Those are my kids. You've got theories that have no scientific basis, and you put, 1,000 experts out there who say, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're going to say most of what Bobby Kennedy, Larry, talks about does test 80-20 in his favor, in the favor of Maha. But Tony Fabrizio's poll, the president's own pollster, reported first by Bloomberg and now by other organizations, show support for vaccines in general tests 80-20 against the Kennedy position.
Yeah, vaccines in general. But then when you start to drill down on it, What about the current schedule we have? What about the number of vaccines that children are getting at very young ages? What about injecting every newborn with a Hep B vaccine when there's no indication that they're vulnerable to Hep B? That sort of thing actually starts to move that needle. And I just want to say, I mean, and I'm not talking about you two, I'm just saying from the perspective of most Trump supporters, and frankly, I think most Americans, the loudest voices criticizing Robert Kennedy Jr. right now are the same voices in the media or in the Democrat Party who still think that Anthony Fauci was 100%
No.
honest. And
John Barrasso criticized him. He
Yeah,
didn't
and that's
celebrate
not-
Fauci. It's just not true, Larry.
I don't
More
remember
than-
Brasso coming out and criticizing Fauci. I remember Brasso.
No. I'm saying
Look, I think that
Yeah.
most Americans believe that under COVID, while mistakes were made, it was the best of intentions, and they got more right,
including Donald Trump.
right, and they got more right than they got wrong. They got stuff wrong, and the 6 feet stuff. I mean, it's embarrassing that they say, "Well, we just kind of made it up," and like, but this is where sometimes I think Trump supporters confuse their base with America.
Correct.
50% of Republicans believe in vaccines generally. I hear you, Larry. We should always be asking about schedules and should this happen and should that happen. The problem is Kennedy has held views for 20 years.
Yeah.
And he's really been out there that I just believe that, you know, this causes this and this causes that. And scientists have said, okay, show us your data. And he's like,
we got to move on. Again, raise your hand if you want to in the conversation. We're going to speed through 4 final topics and then get to your questions. Please raise your hand if you'd like to be on the
80-20 issue. I
conversation.
want to keep talking about it.
And just to be clear, when I espouse peace, love, and understanding, it doesn't mean that I forswear calling people morons when they are. I have to balance that, but I do it nicely. I do it.
Noted.
Yeah.
That was a delicious video experience. I think you'll agree. Now, what you need to do in return for getting to enjoy that is hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss a thing.